Welcome back. Today on Dialed In DIY, we're making turbine pinwheels out of recycled materials that I had lying around the house. These things catch a breeze and really get going. I came up with the idea for this when I was actually trying to make some fan blades, building out from the previous video, which is linked in the description below, where we made basic pinwheels. What you see here is what you need to make the pinwheel with. And if you look in the description below, I'll have a lot more information about these parts, as well as the parts I'm using for making bases at the end of the video. To begin with, let's grab a piece of tape that we can wrap around the can to use for laying out our pinwheel design. Grab some kind of a marker or pencil and just make a little mark where the two pieces of tape overlap. Then, go ahead and take the tape back off of the can and measure the distance between the marks so you know how far it is around the can. Your typical 12-ounce aluminum can is going to be 8 inches around, and we're going to divide this into thirds. The exact measurements are on the screen. Once you have this measured out, put the tape back around the can and then transfer those 3 marks onto the can. Then simply remove the tape and put it back on the can at the bottom. Try to line up the marks with the marks towards the top of the can, and this way you can actually make the same 3 marks at the bottom to line up with the top marks. I went ahead and took a straight edge and connected all these marks, which you don't have to do to make this, but it gave me a reference point that I'm going to use later in the video. But what I did need to do is go take another small piece of tape, measure it off 1 inch, put it back on the bottom of the can, so that I could transfer that 1 inch mark at all 3 lines around the can. Grab your ruler or a straight edge and go ahead and make a mark from the top of the can to that new bottom mark on the can, and you'll end up with a new angled line that gives you a kind of a triangle look running up the can. Connect the dots and make angled lines at all 3 points around the can. Grab a nail or something else sharp and go ahead and make a hole in that little indented tab at the top of the can. If you need help getting it started, grab a push pin or a thumbtack and make a little hole first, which you can then go back with the nail and expand. Then just going to repeat that exact same step on the bottom of the can. We're then going to slice down all 3 of the angled lines. This is the part where you need to start being really careful, because once you start cutting these cans, not only is the knife going to be sharp, but the edges of the can will be as well. Once you have all your angled lines cut, you're going to go back with your knife or box cutter and make about a 1 inch cut in the same direction at the top and bottom of all your angled cuts. The next part does require a little bit of extra caution, because what you're going to do is now grab this loose flap that you just cut and start to fold it back. This is the first step in getting our fan blade, or this little panel, set in shape that we're going to need to make our turbine twist. Believe it or not, that'll actually work just fine this way, but we're going to add an extra little step and tweak out the look and the function just a little bit. You're going to grab a pen or a pencil, put it along your fold, and then roll this flap back towards the opening. This is going to give you the perfect shape for directing your air and making your pinwheel spin as fast as it can. At this angle, you can really see how these flaps turn out and really work like great fan blades. For each of the holders that we're going to make to use these pinwheels on, you're going to start with one of these metal clothes hangers. You want to cut yourself a nice long straight piece. If it's not already straight, you can make it straight using a pair of pliers and taking the kinks out of the bends in the corners. You can see that I put the piece of hanger through the can, the 2 holes that we previously made, and then I'm cutting a little piece of tape. I twisted the end of the wire at the bottom to make a little loop, and then I'm wrapping the tape just above that. The can resting against the tape actually gives a really nice contact point for the can to spin freely. A completely optional step in this process is decorating your pinwheels. I actually used the primer coat of spray paint, which was white, and then a second coat, which was colors. This way, I could get some neat designs by just putting a little bit of tape in place once the primer coat was dry. That left me a negative space when I painted the color back over the top. Your turbine pinwheel is ready to use as is if you want to hang it from something, but I'm going to dial this in a little bit more, and we're going to work on a couple of more creative ways to set these up. We're going to start by cutting the hangers back off of these and getting a new piece of hanger that we're going to use to create 2 more ways to use your pinwheel. You can see I put 2 right angle bends towards the bottom third of the wire. This is going to be a stop point where we're going to use the can to rest on by placing a little bead on top. This is just a wood craft bead that will actually give a great place against the can to reduce the amount of friction. The bead works fantastic. It's even better than the tape. If you make it with enough wire sticking out the bottom, you can actually just stick it straight in the ground like this, and it will be ready to work as a decoration along a path or anywhere else that you want to use one. Also note, you can use these small plastic craft beads too instead of the wood bead, and that works really well. Just use a couple of them to give them a little extra space. Want to make a stand for your pinwheel? Get a little block of wood and drill a hole the same size as your wire right in the middle. You can then go back and take your pinwheel on its wire and stick it straight into the wood. Check it out. You've now got a tabletop mount for your pinwheel. In fact, there's even decorative pieces of wood you can get and decorate with different colors and things too if you'd like, to make them a little bit more festive for your activities. When I was done, I went back and cleaned them up a little bit by trimming the excess wire off the top and then twisting a small loop in them to help hold them in place. I'm testing them out here at my workbench using a small fan so that you can see this actually does hold them up quite well on these little tabletop mounts. But if you want, you can even take it another step further and grab a dowel rod or a stick, make another hole in the end, and you've got yourself a handle. I had a lot of fun coming up with a design and making these and then tweaking them a little bit more as I went along, so I hope you're enjoying them as well. If you come up with some great ways to use these or some alternatives for a way to decorate them, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you for watching. Please press like and then subscribe. There will be more dialed in DIY to come.